Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first live virtual forum of the fall semester. My name is Emily Wicks, and you might recognize my name, but normally I'm kind of behind the computer screen. But I'm very excited to be welcoming you to this forum tonight. John Bell, who is normally our fearless leader on these forums, is currently on sabbatical and enjoying a trip in the Southwest US. So I am serving as interim co-director of the Ballard Institute this semester and welcome you to this forum. So I just wanted to start off with mentioning a couple upcoming programs that we have at the Ballard Institute, and then I will hand it over to our moderator, Dr. Paulette Richards. So just to give you a heads up, in the next 2 weeks, we have 2 more forums coming up. So on November 3rd at 7 p.m., join us again on Zoom or Facebook Live for Maurice Sendak in the World of Puppetry. Again, this is a free forum open to the public, and my co-interim director, Matt Sorensen, will moderate along with staff from the Maurice Sendak Foundation to talk a little bit about our current exhibition, Swing into Action, Maurice Sendak in the World of Puppetry. So that'll be a really exciting one. And if you haven't had a chance to see that exhibition, try to stop by the Ballard Institute to check it out before it closes on December 16th. On November 10th at 7 p.m., I will be back with you again as I help moderate a forum on our project, our collaboration with the UConn's Collaboratory on School and Child Health called Feel Your Best Self. This forum will be called The Making of Feel Your Best Self, Development and Script Writing. And so I will be along with my co-creator, Sandy Jafoulias, and UConn Puppet Arts Uni Frank, UConn Puppet Arts student Uni Frank, and Puppet Arts alumna Sarah Nolan, who really helped on this project that focuses on promoting emotional well-being in elementary age children. Then on November 19th, we have a family-friendly puppet show in our Ballard Institute Theater. We're very excited to have shows back in person in our theater. And the returning performance will be Squirrel Stole My Underpants, which is one of my favorite show titles, I think, by the Gottabees, who is Bonnie Duncan, a very talented puppeteer. So tickets are now on sale, and I will drop links to this and more information for these other events in the chat in just a second. And so in general, if you want to learn more about our upcoming program, because we'll have even more besides these programs, you can join our email list, and I will drop that link in a second as well. So I think that's enough about the Ballard Institute. I am very excited to welcome back our good friend, Dr. Paulette Richards. Dr. Richards is an Atlanta-based teaching artist and independent researcher, and she went to Senegal as a 2013-2014 Fulbright Scholar. But sometime during her time there, the puppet bug bit her hard. Many of you know her because she's been involved in many of our programs at the Ballard Institute, including co-curating the Living Objects African-American Puppetry exhibition and helping to organize the symposium and forum. She holds a PhD from the University of Virginia, and her book, Object Performance in the Black Atlantic, is forthcoming from Rutledge in 2023. Dr. Paulette Richards has been an ongoing friend of the Ballard Institute and continues to really offer us puppetry advice and participates in our advisory board and our programming committee. So we are very excited to have you back. So I will hand the forum over to you, and everyone, please remember that you can participate in the chat either on Zoom or Facebook. We will be answering your questions as we can. So Dr. Richards.
Hi, Emily. It's great to be back at the Ballard, and greetings to all of the puppet arts people out there. This is really excited to be able to do this forum here. We have 2 talented artists who worked on just enchanting film that many of you have seen, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. And so I will first like to introduce Becky Van Cleve, who is an artist and leader in the film and television industry in Los Angeles, California. The majority of her work has been as head of fabrication for puppet and costume departments in the stop motion animation industry. Currently, she's working in the script department on a CG feature at Netflix Animation, with the goal of eventually creating, writing, and directing her own content. There will be puppets. So I'm excited about that. And also we have with us, I hope I say this right, please correct me if I don't, Maria Andreotti, who is a puppet fabricator, production manager, and stop motion instructor based in Los Angeles as well. For the last decade, she has worked primarily at the stop motion and 2D animation studios while creating dolls and puppets for freelance clients. Previous projects include the Box Trolls, Kubo and the Two Strings, Bob's Burgers, Alien Xmas Christmas, and Marcel the Shell. She's currently managing the art and puppet departments on an unannounced stop motion series. Her life goals are directing her own puppet show and playing Mayor H.R. Pufnstuf someday. Hadn't thought about him in a good while. So welcome, Maria and Becky. It's very good to have you here. And one of the things I'm dying to know, and that I'm sure the puppet arts and the rest of the Ballard audience are dying to know, is how did you get into puppetry and how did you end up working on Marcel the Shell?
Okay, I'll go first. Hi, I'm Becky. So I started, I went to college for animation and I have a degree in that. And I took a stop motion class and I was like, wait, you could do this for a living? Yeah. So I came out to LA from Pennsylvania and got an internship way back on Robot Chicken. And that was a great one to learn on because you kind of like get to make a puppet from start to finish, which you don't always get to do on most films. Like usually you have like one little thing that you're in charge of. So it was kind of like an overall good education that I got paid for, which was nice. And then of the many parts of puppet making, I fell in love with sewing the most, mostly because it had less chemicals, if I'm being honest, but also I love sewing. And so I was the head of costume department for that show and many others at Stupid Buddy Studios for a long time. And then after that, I worked on Alien Xmas with Maria, actually. That's where we first met. That's my cat, Charlie. And then after that, so we worked with the Kyoto brothers on Alien Xmas, and that's how we got to work on Marcel because they were simultaneously starting the pre-production for Marcel. Maria?
Hi, I grew up in Hollywood and I was always obsessed with the Muppets and Tim Burton films and things like that. And I grew up making my own little dolls and everything. And then I think how I got into it was I was working at a comic book shop and The Labyrinth was on, and I Googled where the baby was now, and his name is Toby, and he was teaching a puppet class with his parents, Brian and Wendy Froud, who I'm sure some of you might be aware kind of created all the puppets and designs for Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. So I drove up to near San Francisco and took my very first puppet class with them. And Toby happened to be working at Leica at the time on Coraline or Paranorman. And he was like, "You're really into this. You should come down to Portland." So I did. And I blindly moved there and I got a job a year later at Leica and I worked on the Box Trolls and Kubo, and I was the puppet department assistant there. I was like 22. So I really learned everything from being there. And then I moved back here to LA and I dabbled in 2D. Actually, I became a PA at DreamWorks because that was just like the first job I could find. And they were starting to develop this Captain Underpants series and they wanted some live action puppets. And one of the guys from Leica was producing that show. So he was like, "Oh, you like puppets. Why don't you make them?" And I ended up making like 50 different assets for them over the course of 3 years. So that was probably my biggest like solo puppet job. There were hand puppets, stop motion dolls, everything. And then I heard about Alien Xmas and I got onto that project with Becky, and yeah, the rest is history because the Kyotos got to be the animation studio behind Marcel. So that was a huge blessing and feel really lucky to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. Now, you all have prepared a special treat for us, which is a slide presentation with some behind the scenes images of the puppets that you made for Marcel the Shell. So we would really love to see that.
So this is Marcel. If you look at the bottom, there's the original from the animated short. And we had nothing to do with that. That was all the director and Jenny Slate. So Dean and Jenny made the original. And that's kind of what we used as like a, I don't know, like I had him on my desk every day and we would check him to make sure we were doing it right. And of course, you know, Dean wanted some improvements. You can see like the colors are slightly different. But the original was a real shell and we had to shoot on multiple stages with multiple animators. And we just couldn't possibly use the real shell for it. So we actually ended up we scanned the original one and then ZBrush sculpted him to kind of get him into the exact right shape that Dean wanted, both what he wanted visually, but then also from our perspective, like what technically could work. Like for example, like the outer rim of his shell is very, very fragile. So we had to thicken that just a little bit to make sure that it wouldn't break constantly. We had to make him solid so that you couldn't see through him. And so that's just kind of the overall. Did you want to talk about summary? I'm chatting away.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, we couldn't use shells because the light would shine through them on stage. So I think for his family, some of them that worked because there were such few shots with them. But just like Becky said, we 3D printed these. We had to sand them all and dip them in things for I think like a full day on each puppet or so. Like it took quite a while to do the finishing on them. So we had a whole team just working on them for a few weeks. But yeah,
to have like that striation, we had to like sand that down and then throw a coat of dull coat on it. And then we had to hand paint the highlights so that it would look more like a real shell. Because you know how shells have that very like organic highlights and lowlights to them. So we had to try and recreate that. And like the difference between the body and the feet is they're both ZBrush sculpted, but the top, the body of him is actually printed in color. So we did a lot of color testing there as well to kind of get like more organic feel. And the shoes, we actually did try to mold and cast his original toy shoes from the short, but we found that like because they're literally that small. They're very tiny. And so you get a lot of like detail loss when you do that. So we had to go through and sculpt the high parts higher, the low parts lower, so that it would account for the molding and casting of it, that like loss of detail. So that was an interesting thing that we found out through the R&D process. Oh, another thing is like the clay, originally the green was clay, but that would probably be a nightmare for the animators to work with because just like it would be inconsistent. We wanted to have like a nice consistent like hole for the eye to go into. So that's actually intrinsically cast color as well. Because like if you painted it, you would see every single like striation because he's so tiny and the camera's like right up close to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can probably go to the next slide.
So here are the shoes.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see like the gray is actually just like a test print, and we found that it was just a little bit too small, so we ended up printing them a little bigger. And we went through a lot of different color tests. Dean was very particular about the colors, and like he wanted us to match more closely the book color than the actual original short, which I thought was interesting. We can do next. Yeah. Do you want to talk about shoes?
Just an array of had a huge bag of Polly Pocket shoes, and I remember we were trying to find sort of like hip grandma style sneakers for Nana Connie. But yeah, obviously we didn't have any shells with heels on, but it was fun going through these and trying to find some things for the extras, and yeah, just a fun little BTS of how tiny they really are.
So small. Okay, I think we can do the next. Yeah.
Eyes and lids.
Yeah, do you want to talk about this? This was your life for a very long time, Maria.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, so that's a photo. The bottom right is my desk during the COVID lockdown. Actually, we got shut down for a couple of months, And a lot of us took these home. I actually still have some here with me. This is how small they are, basically the size of a baby's fingernail. And like Becky said, the lids and the eye sockets. So we had like basically a googly eye is as big as you remember. So we had to cast the back of them and make sure that they fit perfectly. And once we had all of those made, they were imperfect. And so we had to sand them all down and make sure that they were smooth. And so I was basically sanding these little lids for months, and a lot of them would break and have holes in them, like bubbles from the mold. So it's just really, really small work. And for the animators to be able to, well, we did these different, I think you can see these different 1, 2, 3, and then, oh, there goes one. 3 stages of the lids closing, and then a full close. That one's Nana Connie. So the animators would have to replace them for each blink. And for the pupils, we actually ended up opening up the googly eye and moving and positioning the Google inside the black pupil part and keeping it stationary, gluing it down so that they actually had different googly eyes to use, so they wouldn't have to maneuver that. It would not be fun. So yeah, you can see in the photo of Nana Connie all the different eyes they wanted for her, and the one of my desk, like how they would come out of the mold with the sticks on them and kind of glossy. So we had to really treat those, and there were hundreds and hundreds of them. So very meticulous. I think we had 20 animators at one point, or like 15. And they each had sets of these eyes, and they would get lost. And so they all had backups for their backups. So that's how many.
So many. I think there's a little more of the eye process on the next slide. Yeah. Eyes. So yeah, you can see it's just very meticulous. We had to like slice the back and glue them down, and sometimes the glue would fog up the Google eye. So it's just all very delicate work. And we would just do, usually it was just like you can see in the image on the left, it's like there's like a side, a slight middle, and a middle, and then we had a bunch in between. And actually some animators even like did their own. Like I know Kung Min, who's an amazing animator, like he just, everything is so subtle. The acting on it is just, because everything's so small and vulnerable and heartfelt, you just need those slight increments. So we just did as many as we possibly could, and they would just do by trial and error what really worked for the performance. They nailed it. I think we can do next. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there's a couple costumes in this. We had some really awesome costumers on this. Really Dahlia, I mean, she was, but you helped too. And then, so like, I know Dean was really particular about the cap that he wanted on Marcel. It's actually like a pistachio shell. And like, there are rules that we used for building everything. And it's kind of just like household items that you would find like that could get lost in a couch. That's kind of like our world, and that you couldn't bring in any other elements outside from that. So, you know, his weapons, of course, are like a pin and a match, and the quill, that's what holds arrows, right? Is like the back of a pencil, things like that. Is there anything else I missed about that you want to talk about, Maria?
No, that's perfect. And the little rubber band to hold it all together. And yeah, I remember we were looking for the quill. Is that, I don't know that word. But yeah, we were looking for what that could be for a while. And then one of us was like, oh yeah, let's just break this pencil apart. So it was really fun just kind of looking around at our own desks and what we were using, and at home to see like what can we bring in, and you know what's gonna work. But yeah, and Becky, you have a really good story, like what it was a rule about like how many things could be on each character, right?
Totally, yeah. So Marcel is a Google eye, some green clay, a shell, and shoes. That's it, 4. So no other character was allowed to have more than 4 elements. In fact, they should probably have less unless they're another shell. So I guess if you go to the next slide, you can kind of see the wide community. And like we said, it's like household items, stuff you'd find in drawers and your couch cushions and your kitchen. And then of course shells as well. So that was really fun. We all got to kind of play around for a week or so and just kind of like pitch our own little characters. I think we all got at least one in. There was some like Tampoodle, which is a tampon dog. She didn't make it in, but we love her all the same.
Yeah, she's in the corner there. I think because she had like too many legs or something, and the nose, it was too much. But
It's too cool. It would distract from everything. So.
Yeah, they couldn't look too cartoony or like whatever, and it had to look like they just came to be, from object to person now. So
exactly. Yeah. We can go to the next slide, I think. So let's see. So Shell Family, in the film, you would see that Marcel had done like drawings, like etchings of his entire family. So in a way, we kind of had character designs for some of them, but of course we were using real shells for characters that weren't Marcel or Connie, just because they're one-offs, like they're only in like a couple scenes, and so we didn't need to mass produce them the way we had to mass produce Marcel and Connie. So we got to use those as like a jumping off point on who each character was. Do you want to talk more about that, Maria?
Yeah. I mean, God, like it was just so great to have these drawings, and Dean was really particular about like giving us notes, and I always remember Maestro. He's like wanted a bit of Eugene Levy in there, and yeah, I don't know. It was so fun picking out all these different, we had bags and bags of shells. And I remember Becky went to the shell shop to buy them. And we would put out just like 6 to 10, like, oh, these are all the Ankas, and Dean would be like, oh, give me a little more of this one with this one's shoes. And so, yeah, that process was really great.
I think if you go to the next slide, we can look at Maestro in more detail.
Yeah,
so those were like our pitches for it. We didn't use the colors of those shoes, but those were like our pitches for like the style of shoe that he would have. Yeah, he was a fun one. I don't know if I have it. His inspiration was Eugene Levy. He has like a really big eyebrow over his eye. He's so cute. I love him. I don't know if we went with did we go with the one that has the moss? I don't think so. I think it was like a darker thing.
Yeah, it wasn't the moss one, but he did have like a accented eyebrow.
Yeah, super cute.
These guys are actually my favorite. Sorry, Becky. I love the pencil guys. They're the cutest ones. I don't know, something about them.
Yeah, they just like zoom around. And like as far as rigging goes, there was none. Like it's just they're just like the wheels, and the animators just move them around on stage.
Rigging is actually a great thing to talk about, because Marcel, there were some early tests. Actually, I have friends who worked on it before us who made armatures for him, and the armature is like the skeleton that would go inside a stop motion puppet, usually wire or like ball and socket joints. But we realized really early on that we didn't need them, and he's literally, I have one too, he's just got wax, or I mean putty on him. What is it, Becky? A mix, or is it just the white sticky?
It's a mix. It's like it's poster putty mixed with sticky wax, because sticky wax would be too messy and poster wax isn't sticky enough. So put them together, and then like if we needed it to be colored, like for Marcel, his shoes are like slightly yellow, so for him we just put in a little bit of like just pigment and mix that together, and every animator would get a kit that had that, and then one without pigment, because Connie's shoes are white, so no pigment for her.
Yeah, I think that actually really lent to the animation, like the simplicity of it. It was definitely a challenge for a lot of our animators at first who are used to armatures. But once they got the hang of it, like it was like so beautiful to see the acting that would come out of like having just a shell on shoes, and that simplicity really lent itself to the movie, I think. But yeah, these guys didn't need anything, and a lot of our Cheeto friends and stuff, they just had like a wire in their back, or or just like a little piece of this putty to stand. And I don't know, I think it was really great, actually, like a great challenge.
Agreed. We can move on to the next. Oh yeah, the Costa.
Pastas.
So cute. Yeah, those were just so basically we took for Mrs. Costa, we just took a sewing tomato and like pulled the stuffing out, restuffed it, and with like shoe foam, I think we used just so we could pin into it. And then we made sure that the armature wire was locked in there good so they could animate her little strawberry baby. It's so cute. But you can kind of see like the idea of her is like the only added element is just the eyes and the nose for her and her baby. Same with Mr. Costa. Like again, it's just keeping it simple, like not adding too many. Thimble Mouse is actually more complex. It's
Yeah, I'm
actually
surprised.
yeah, I can't
He
believe
made the cut. He was so
yeah.
cute when he let him in.
Exactly. And then you can go to the next one. Yeah, more household items. So tampons, why not, right?
The crowd favorite.
Definitely. And that was interesting. We actually had to like pull it apart and like glue everything and then push it back together. And you had to keep it away from moisture, of course, because it would just
Yeah.
get bigger. And we did make a couple with armatured tails, but ultimately like our animation director Kirsten Lepore, she is amazing. She's a genius, but she was very much into embracing like simplicity, and so oftentimes she'd just have us use without the wire, like it would just be the loose string, and I'm sure it was harder for the animators, but it kept it more realistic and real life. Like in general, that was a rule of it. It's like use the item that it actually is if you can, and then we'll fake it when we need to. But most of the time we try to just use things as is.
Yeah. And I think if you watch the film, I hope I'm not spoiling, well, I hope we've all seen it, but during the funeral, and there's like the shot of all the puppets, you can see Tampon Ghost's little string like wrapped around another character. And I think that's so great. It's like the cutest thing.
It really is. I love that part.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. Oh yes, so speaking of real items, so for the Pistachio Cousins, also a fan favorite, love those guys. So we used the real shells. We had one of our fabricators, Jay Shipman, ate all of the pistachios for us, the actual nuts, and we saved the shells. And then we took a mold of one of the pistachio nuts, and then we intrinsically cast those, and then did some hand painting. Because the thing with pistachios is like they do kind of like brown a little bit as they age. So, and also like we tried not to use real food when we could, but there were definitely times where we used real food. Yeah. So we wanted to preserve the green color. So I think these images are probably just the real shells, and then we swapped them out for the cast ones later.
Yeah. That was a big deal to sway from puppets on sets as well, because Marcel has the ginkgo berries and like the plant that he lives in and things like that. And we had to make fake, I mean, you can't tell probably, hopefully, but a lot of all the little peas in their pods and everything were handmade to look like real food because the lights on the set and the shot could go on for days, and we didn't want anything to spoil. So that was definitely part of it, taken into consideration, like what can we actually use for longer than a day or so. If not, we have to fake it.
Yep. If you go to the next slide, you can see that when we did have to use real food, we tested out different ways of like kind of encasing the food so that maybe it's not as gross. So we did, we tried like hairspray and dull coats and clear coats. I think we ended up going with more just like dull coat just to kind of seal it a little bit. And that's just for like the wide shots. These ones weren't really animatable. We found out really quick that you cannot animate checks. It will just shatter.
Yep.
So, and like their feet, their shoes are just tiny little peanuts and things. But again, like for the most part, we would mold and cast them. So like for the checks, for example, we very carefully cut one side off of the checks, made a mold of that, cast it twice, and then glued the two pieces together. And then painted it to look like checks, and then put fake peanuts that were also mold and cast on it. And I mean, I feel like it worked really well. Like unless you touched it or tasted it, you wouldn't know. Next slide. There's some more.
Yeah, these are the real ones. This was us just figuring out kind of what Dean wanted. So these would be kind of an example of the photos we would take and be like, which one is gonna make the cut, you know, and which one is too silly or whatever, but they ended up looking like this, so.
Yeah. Next slide. Yeah. The sugar cube kids were actual sugar cubes.
Real
And
sugar.
yeah, we tried spraying them. It just kind of melted, which we figured would happen. So the chocolate chips are fake. We got those off of Etsy, but the sugar themselves are real. But they weren't in that much. So it was kind of okay. We just kind of kept them away from water for when we weren't using them. Next slide. Oh yeah, vomit. We did a lot of tests. A lot of it was animation department, but we definitely stepped in and helped a little with that. Just making replacement pukes for Marcel. I think we went with the top right.
Top right, yeah. And the tears too, right? We mixed, I don't know if they're on here, but it was like museum gel mixed with something.
Mhm.
And it would melt after a while if it was on stage too long, so they were constantly replacing. So yeah, when Marcel's crying, it's like this museum gel mix, and the little puddles, it's all animated. We obviously couldn't use real water, so
No. Next. Oh, that's just again to scale to see like how tiny everything is, and we had to keep track of all of those and deliver them to stage. Next slide. Oh yeah, I put in some of the director's notes. We were in 2 different buildings, so we did a lot of like our work and approvals through email and things, and it actually worked out great because then we got shut down for the pandemic, and so we were already used to working that way anyway. So just like apart and away. We did eventually, like Maria said earlier, like go back and work, and nobody got COVID, so yay, we did great. So yeah, I think we were kind of fully prepared for that going in because it was kind of already our way of doing things. Next, onset. I'm going to talk about onset.
I just included this. I also got to AD a little bit on this film, which was really fun because you're walking around with the walkie-talkie, making sure everything's delivered and happening. But this is just an example of the notes that Dean would give, like the puppet placement. So this is the big crowd scene when they're all watching the film or the interview at the end. And this is how many puppets he wanted. And we actually ended up with way more in the shot because he would come in and just be like, put one here. And I think some of them actually don't even move, but you can't tell because it's so good. But yeah, we were adding little guys to this shot up until the last second. But yeah, this is just kind of what Dean would do, kind of tell us where he wanted things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we prepped about 100 puppets for that shot, but then he's like, can we get double? And we're just
Closer
like,
to 300.
oh.
Yeah.
So we all like ran to the crafty station and grabbed like as many snacks as we could and just turned them into puppets. That poor animator. He did a great job though. Like he kept everything alive, even though like he couldn't really touch most of them.
And the bed, I remember the bedding was a nightmare too, because like they had to make it like animatable under the covers, and the covers kept moving, and so that shot should just really be commended. It's great. And the big couch scene too, where they're all jumping on the couch, all of that. The art department did such a great job making the cushions go, up and downable. So
yeah, that was super impressive. And going back to rigging for that, like because a lot of them were not puppets that had built-in rigging like Marcel and Connie, we ended up just hot gluing T-pins on wires to the backs of them. And so like we just, luckily it was just kind of zooming out or whatever. So like you wouldn't see the side of them. So you didn't have to like do a lot of hiding of the rigs. But that's just how we had to do it. A few of them, we actually screwed in pins to the shoes so they could like pin down, but not everyone. Actually, I think we did that more for the funeral scene in the garden box than this one. But yeah, it seemed to work. Next slide. It's one of our animators. There's a rig, speaking of rig.
That's a good one, actually. That's for when they're all jumping on the branch outside. So that was composited later, but that's Kent, right? Animating on this rig with just little wires. It's pretty amazing, actually.
Really.
Shout out to the VFX team because
Mhm.
Everything, actually, we didn't even mention that, like, the live action portion was shot and given to us when we started. We already had the movie, so we had to match in the art department all of the surfaces and, like, 2x2 of it, or however much we needed, and match all the lighting. Shout out to Eric Atkins, amazing DP. He, like, if you're watching Marcel in the car on a map, all we had was a map and Marcel, and he made it seem like they were driving, and the shadows were hitting him perfectly and everything. So that's a huge part of it. And this is just one example. Like, they're not on a tree branch, but they are in the movie. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Totally. Next one.
just a close up.
What's that? Yeah. And
There
that's
she is.
the wide shot of after he asked for double puppets. I love that their couch is like a hot dog bun.
Yeah,
That was a real hot dog bun, right? I think
that
it
was a real one. Yeah, yeah.
So
Thank goodness it didn't mold.
right, exactly. And go to the next one is like a close up.
Yeah, that's pre-double puppets.
Yep. So cute. So many little things.
This is just another example of one of our setups, and just a small portion of the table with the book. We couldn't find that firecracker anywhere, but we got it in Chinatown. And another angle of Marcel's armor. But
Mhm. And this kind of shows you like how we use like real size objects, because that's what Marcel would be interacting with. We did kind of toy with the idea of making like a few things bigger for like hero shots, but ultimately we wanted just more realism, and we wanted Marcel to stay. I mean, I say we, but I mean like Kirsten and Dean just wanted the realism of it, and also like that would double the puppet build and the set build, prop build, everything if we had to make larger versions of everything. So we just kind of kept it the same size as he would be, which is 1 inch tall.
yeah, and this is another good example of, we didn't have to use the real book. That's like just a fake thing with the pages opened up, just whatever we needed for the shot. So a lot of it is just pieces of things.
Yeah. Next one. Hmm.
Connie on her rig with her hat.
Oh yeah, we did. I didn't put pictures of it in here, but I know Dahlia did like a bunch of different hats for her, and at first we were like, well, would she have like a store bought, like those little doll ones that you would buy at like a craft store? So we tried that, and then she made like one made out of paper or newspaper.
Yeah, that one was
cute.
great.
I
I
like
wish,
that
yeah,
one.
we should have had that. But and she also did these flower crowns,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for Marcel's mother has a flower crown.
Yeah.
And yeah, he kept referencing Midsommar for the reference for that. I was like, that's an interesting reference, but
Yeah.
visually it makes sense. Like it turned out beautifully. And then yeah, oh, this one's so cute.
Just a good setup of the rooftop scene. And this was actually a nightmare getting him to light the match. Like, the animation team is so amazing, but getting a little shell to look like he's lighting a candle is really hard work. So we spent many days on that, acting like that back and forth of like, how's he gonna move, and how are they going to rig it so that nothing is blocked and all of that. So those are all things to consider. I think I just included this because it was one of the hardest shots to kind of figure out with the puppet and the prop. Took probably a whole week, but yeah.
He doesn't have hands, like, so you really do have to like overthink about like, how does he do things? It's not easy for him. Life is hard. It is for all of us, I guess. Yay.
That's Caitlin, our rigger, and Dean placing the puppets for the funeral scene.
So lovely. I think that's all we had.
Yeah, that's the last slide.
Thank you so much for that peek into the world of Marcel the Shell and your intricate process of animating this wonderful character. We had at least one question come in while you were speaking, so I'd like to feed that in first, and then we can keep going. So this is an anonymous attendee asked, it seems that you were younger as you learned and grew into your professional selves. What is 2 sentences of advice that you would give to someone who's not in their 20s, who's interested in getting into puppetry film?
I would say, oh, sorry, you go.
No, go ahead, Becky.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just play around and have fun with it is really, just get your hands dirty. That's really the best way to learn anything. Just do what you're passionate about.
Yeah, I think research is really important and just watching things you like. I mean, I grew up with the Muppets and Pee-wee and Nightmare Before Christmas, and I was always watching the making of, to see how they were doing things, and I would make little things of my own, just copying. I mean, most of my childhood art is just copying Nightmare Before Christmas dolls and things like that. So I think if you're inspired by something, just keep absorbing it and try to figure out how other people did it. And there's so much now on YouTube and everything. I've learned so much, not only from people teaching me at jobs, but off the internet and off online classes. So I think there's so much to learn, and yeah, just keep learning things all the time. And like Becky said, apply it and just follow your dream if you want to work in this, because it's a niche thing, but there is work. So it's not, don't let your parents tell you not to go to art school. It's worth it.
Totally. Yeah. And you can reach out to other people who've done it. And people are usually pretty excited and happy to share their passion and like advice.
Definitely. Yeah. I get messages on LinkedIn all the time, and I always respond. Just I'm happy, like everyone's happy to help usually, because they know how hard it is and they've been there. So
Great. Thank you for your inspirational advice. I'm going to take the questions that I had prepared a little bit out of order, sort of piggybacking on what you were just saying. So YouTube has nurtured a cohort of puppeteers whose formative experiences as performers has been on screen rather than on stage. So do either of you have an interest in live puppet theater? And if so, why or why not?
I would love to eventually. Yeah, I've done just a couple projects. Like I did one, I did a hand puppet for my friend Tennessee, and I actually puppeteered it, and that was really fun. And then I did some with Stupid Buddy for like Denny's commercials, and I had a blast. So yeah, I would definitely love to do more of that. And I actually just recently went to the Bob Baker Marionette Theater here in LA for the first time, like last year. And I just fell in love. I bought the book immediately. Like it's so cool, like just to see all the different things that they've created. And I love the style too. How about you, Maria?
I love live action and theatrical puppetry. I actually, when I moved back here from Leica, I took we have puppetry school here in LA. I don't know if it's still a thing. Michael Earl, who unfortunately passed away, I think he was the original Snuffleupagus. He was teaching at the time, and I took theatrical puppetry and TV and film puppetry classes, and it was, I mean, possibly the most fun I've ever had in my life. And it was so interesting to learn like the difference between the TV thing versus like the theater thing where you move with the puppet, and it's so beautiful to do the improv and see what people come up with when it's on their hand, and I don't have a lot of experience with marionettes, but I love the Bob Baker Theater and going to see what they do as well. And I got to puppeteer a little bit on Captain Underpants, the TV series. I made those puppets, and it was just so fun. I think if I had a chance, I would definitely do it. It's a bit difficult to get into. I think a lot of the people who've been doing it forever are still doing it, but never say never, and like Becky said, we can always incorporate it into our own shows. I've been dabbling in a writing my own puppet show for 4 or 5 years now, and if possible, it'd be great to do live action. You know, I grew up with Pee-wee and everything, and I think it's so great, and it's great like to be live. And even though the stop motion world is still acting, we have rehearsals and blocking and everything, and it's so meticulous, and you have to match audio so it's timed. And I think just the impromptu vibe of the theater and live action film puppetry is so great and beautiful. So I love it. I'd love to do it.
It is very much a different energy. It's like what we do is kind of reacting to the script and the audio and everything. Whereas when you're doing something live, it's like, it's an experience, you know, and it is just kind of flowing through you. And that's very close to like how creativity is in general. It's like most of the time, like you might have a plan going into something, but then it turns out way differently because you're changing your plan as you go. You're being influenced and inspired by like what's in front of you, you know. It's really cool.
Thank you. So we have 2 questions from Paul Spirito, who is a professor here in the Puppet Arts Department. The first one is, what have been some of your favorite projects over your career?
I loved working at Leica because it was my first like foray into this, but the things they do there are just magic. Like when I was on the Box Trolls, I think I've never seen anything so beautiful as like walking out onto those sets with the tiny cheeses and stuff. So I think that was a really special one. I think getting to work on the Captain Underpants show was probably creatively my favorite because I got to just make, like, I would get a 2D design and I would just make the puppet at my house just however I wanted. And they were really supportive of like just using they wanted things to look like a kid made them. So it was really fun. I made some out of like mops that were upside down, and I would like tie the hair and like paint them and things like that. So I really like that sort of found object thing. And not to be cheesy, but Marcel is definitely my favorite project I've ever worked on. I think when I was lucky, I got to break down the script at the beginning and like basically like 1,000 some shots, write down everything we needed for them and who the characters were in each shot and everything. And even just through that process, I'd be like crying, you know, because it was so beautiful to read the script, and it never gets old. I've watched it like 100 times and I still tear up. So that was such a special project to work on. And stop motion can be very tedious, but it didn't feel that way. And when we all got sent home, we were so sad, you know, to not come to work for a while. And yeah, I've never been on something like that where, everything has been fun and felt like camp, but this one was just like a big family, and we all loved the content so much. So I think I speak for many of us when the answer is Marcel's our favorite. But Becky?
I'll ditto all of the Marcel stuff for sure. Like it was a great crew, a great story. It's just a great experience, like nothing like it. And then as far as other things, like creativity wise, I'd say like just helping my friends with their films. Like I've worked with like bigger name directors and everything, and I love that so much because you're inspired by what they're bringing to it. But then it's a different energy when you're like working with your friends on things. I've helped with like live action short films for like costuming, which have been a blast. And then like I had a couple of friends a few years ago who did, I guess Alexis was producing shorts somehow. And so like they had a show called Friendship All Stars of Friendship. And so I worked on that as the costumer on that. But that again, it was just so fun because you're working directly with your close friends. You already have like kind of a shorthand language, and there's a lot of fun memories involved with that. So it's like creatively it's fun because like they're your peers and they respect you and you respect them, and it's a good experience that way. And then also you just get to have fun with your friends, so it's nice. But also Marcel, my favorite.
So the second question is, what would be your dream project?
Becky.
Yeah, just making our own show. Yeah, I'd love to. Like, I'm writing a few things right now. One is kind of more live action mixed with, well, it's still, I guess once we finish the script, we'll figure out what medium exactly speaks to us. So there's like a live action mixed media feature film, and then a TV show for kids. And we talked about doing it as like a 2D show, but like I've been out of stop motion since Marcel. I've been working in CG, and it's so amazing and educational, and I'm learning so much about like the more the pre-production side of things, because I'd like to be able to write my own and direct my own work. But like I just miss that tactile, like I want crafts and tiny things, and like I want to like touch little puppets. So I definitely will be putting those into my projects moving forward. Yeah, that's me, Maria.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, growing up, my dream was always like to work on the Muppets or Sesame Street or something. You know, it was just like the epitome of joy, and comedy and music all in one. And I think that, like Becky, I've been working on my own stuff, and if it ever gets finished, I would love to have, I mean, Puff and Stuff, HR Puff and Stuff is like one of my favorite things as well. I would love to have a set that's live action and have, you know, somebody in a walk around outfit and a bunch of puppets. I used to watch Bear in the Big Blue House when I was way too old to watch it, and I'm so excited they just added it to Disney Plus. I don't work for them, but I'm just excited enough to mention that plug. And as a 30-some-year-old, I'm excited to watch that, you know, because there's something really special to me about puppet shows where all the characters they just get to be there, and there's no real reason for them to be there except that they want to be together. And that's what I think those shows were, just like a community and like, or a neighborhood or something where they get to have fun and go on like adventures. And there's great, I think the talent on all these shows has been amazing. Like my dream would just be to have either my own puppet show or someone, you know, who I admire have their own puppet show and get to work on it and have the talent that they've had on these Henson projects and everything, and have great music and art showcased and design. And I just think it doesn't get overlooked, but when something is a kid's show, it kind of does. So I think just working on something beautiful and joyful would be my dream. Yeah.
Great. So that opens it up for the next question that I had, not in order, but in the US, people still think that puppetry is mainly for kids, but Marcel was always intended for adult audiences. How did targeting an adult audience influence the design of the puppets and sets?
I mean, I feel like we treated it, I guess, just more realistic. You know, we tried to not make it too cartoony, I guess. And it's, you know, I think Dean's intention has always been realism, you know, and being open to a broader audience. You know, it's not, I think I've had kids tell me how much they love it. I've had adults, like 80-year-olds, tell me how much they loved it, you know. So like it's definitely something that kind of speaks to everybody. And I think in general, stop motion, people are attracted to it because it does have that tactile feel. Like you watch CG movies anymore and you see they're kind of emulating what we do in stop motion. Like the tricks that we do, they're like recreating it in a medium that's a little bit easier to noodle later in the process. With stop motion, you kind of just shoot an order and you're done. And so there's a lot less, you know, creative control for directors, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it definitely, I think it was aimed at adults with the same, on the same level as like Marcel is a kid. I think Marcel is supposed to be like 12 or something. And I think it was really helpful to have him sort of act as the audience in the film. Like everything's going on and we're seeing Marcel react to things, and how would Marcel react to like when Dean's computer battery is low and he's like, your soda can is empty, you know, and things like that. Like, I think that was really great because kids can relate to that as well. But the film has such adult themes, like, you know, divorce and death, obviously, and stuff. And I think it related to, I mean, the puppets, they had to be shells and Cheetos and things. I think definitely they were more adult things you'd find around the house, like a tampon. We weren't using kids' toys to make them, you know, that was great. And then I have this little lantern here for kicks. And this is also just, and it's a coffee filter and a tea candle and some wires. So I think that definitely influenced, like, he was using things that were in an adult Airbnb. So so all of the things in the script and the props and everything, and even Marcel's reactions to some things, I think, were aimed more towards adults. But I do think it's enjoyable for kids, especially as a learning experience too, like coping with things. And I don't know. Yeah, I rambled.
Oh, that's great. So now I can loop in something else with a question that came in from the audience with one of the questions that I had prepared. The audience member asked, do you find it hard to move back and forth between CG and practical work? And I was going to get a little bit more theoretical with that, because that's what academics do. And talk about, normally we make distinctions between puppetry and 2D animation, but you all seem to move pretty seamlessly between the two worlds. And so I'd be interested in your observations, as was the audience member as well, on the differences or similarities between those two forms of bringing inanimate characters to life.
Sorry.
Becky, go ahead.
Sure. As far as moving back and forth between them, I feel like in recent years with stop motion in particular, we've very much embraced combining CG with stop motion. And so we're taking things that we used to have to do by hand and we're putting it into the computer, just like Marcel. Like somebody maybe would have had to mold and cast a real shell instead of ZBrush, you know, but then it was just easier to do the color striations in the computer. So in that way, like we are embracing CG in our pipeline. And then as far as like moving, like working on a CG feature versus stop motion, the pipeline is a lot different in terms of just like tracking of assets, you know, like in real life or in stop motion, you are literally tracking an asset. Like you have to know where that puppet is at all times physically. Whereas with CG, it's all on the computer. And so I guess the pipelines are different enough that like on a resume, it is a little bit harder to kind of go back and forth between the two because they're different. Different people hire you and they may not understand the similarities, I guess. Does that answer the question, I think?
Yes, that's a good answer. Maria, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all sort of, it relates to itself. Like you can't make a stop motion. It's kind of, yeah, it's different. You can't make a stop motion film without 2D and 3D at this point. Essentially, you need, like, everything is storyboarded first anyway. So there is somebody in a way animating it. We had an animatic, which is just the storyboards put together with timing and sound, that we were watching constantly. And Dean and Kirsten worked on that for a while before we started making the film. So, and at Leica, they have the faces 3D printed, you know, on the machines, like you'll have every single face come out on a tray for the scene and somebody models that on the computer. So it's really involved and they go hand in hand. On a 2D show, yeah, you don't need stop motion on a 2D show. So, you know, you break down the script in the same way and you separate the assets, like Becky said, backgrounds, props, characters, but then you just give that list to designers and they draw it, and it usually just gets animated right then and there, and the show's done. Well, edited and sound, but yeah, it's different. And but there are similarities with 3D animation and stop motion, I feel like, because somebody is taking a physical asset and moving it around. So in that way they're similar, but yeah, it's a totally different pipeline. But I feel like in stop motion you need to have it all, and this movie would be, I mean, nowhere without the VFX team. All the mouths and a couple of the puppets are CG, and a lot of other little things. So, and everything, all the rigs, you know, they remove them in post. So I don't even know how we would rig stuff if we couldn't get rid of it afterwards. So yeah, all the cleanup and cleaning up all the little holes on the stages when characters walk, and all of that is a nightmare. So yeah.
Yeah, that was very helpful. And I noticed in the first slide where you had the image of Marcel that there were 4 little dots. Presumably that's the mark for where his mouth goes.
Yeah, exactly. The edges. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say we only ended up using the 2 end ones and we eliminated the middle. But yeah, that was so that VFX could know exactly where to put the mouth.
And then keep it in character. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
Just that so that it wouldn't go like too far to any side, because then it wouldn't look right. That was really, really meticulous as well.
Great. So we actually did get through all the questions that I had prepared, but we have one from Daniel Trujillo. Do either of you have any recommendations for online classes or in-person classes in Los Angeles? Great presentation and thank you.
Trying to think. I can't recall the name of it. Let me look it up real quick. Maria, do you have a place?
I don't know of many. That puppetry school place, I'm not sure if they're still going, but that's where I learned live action puppetry. And I know that Stupid Buddy Studios has a stop motion animation course that they do. I think you have to pay a bit, but a lot of people get hired from that class. It's more animation based, so I think it's like if you actually want to animate. As far as fabrication, like I said, I've just learned so much from interning and working at places and being online. Like if you just Google like how to build a wire armature, there are hundreds of videos. But a lot of colleges now are doing workshops. Like I teach at Cal State Northridge, and every semester or every other semester I have a 6-week workshop, and we make wire armature puppets and make a little video with them. So there are places that'll do that. I think there's also one at Fullerton, but anybody can sign up for those usually. And yeah, I would just recommend getting online. There unfortunately aren't a lot of are too few classes that teach this, in my opinion, but there are a lot of studios that will take interns or PAs, like Fonco Studios. Fawn Davis, he worked on Nightmare Before Christmas. He hires people to come in like on a daily or weekly basis, and you can learn so much there. And Stupid Buddy, and there's another one that does internships too. I'm blanking. Does Titmouse do internships? Open the Portal might. Yeah, yeah, Open the Portal is a really small stop motion studio here. Apartment D as well. Our friends run that one. I would just look up stop motion studios around your city. In LA, we have quite a few, and write to them. I mean, God, I've written blindly to so many studios in my lifetime. Just don't be afraid to do that, because chances are they've got something going that they need extra hands on, and like nobody will say no to free help, and especially if you're learning, it's gonna benefit you. So I've done a ton of internships and stuff like that and helped out on random videos and stuff just to get the experience.
Yeah, keyword
But
is
know your
help.
limit. No, what?
Yes.
Sorry, what, Becky?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, keyword is help. Like, that's always my approach. Even if I'm like the head of the team, it's always just how can I help?
Yeah.
Like the more helpful you are, the more valuable you are to people who will give you jobs.
Yeah, definitely. Just reach out. There's no, you have nothing to lose. And even if they don't advertise internships, because a lot of the time when they do, they're like paid internships and you have to get yourself there and whatever. And that's, even that can seem pretty daunting. So I would just write to people and say, can I help? You know, I'm really interested in learning this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. If you would put some of those names in the chat,
Sure.
and people can follow those leads on their own. I think this is excellent because on the East Coast, we're often not as aware of what artists on the West Coast are doing. And so this is a whole new network that you're opening up for the puppet art students and the rest of the Ballard audience. So thank you for that. Then as we were chatting before the forum, I asked if there is going to be a sequel.
Yeah.
Marcel the Shell, because I enjoyed it so much. I would love to live in that world again. And have you all heard anything like that? And you also had some other news.
Oh yeah. Well, I think Becky and I both would love it. We'd love if there was a sequel. I personally wouldn't mind Marcel the show and have a whole season of him. He's jealous of Tiny Chef who got his own show. So yeah, but haven't heard anything yet. And the exciting news was that we just won Best Animated Feature at the Saturn Awards 2 nights ago. We were up against some great movies, so it's very exciting, especially since the rumor was that we weren't sure we would qualify for the animated film Oscar because there's a certain percentage that the film needs to be full animation. So fingers crossed, and we're definitely gonna pull for it. But yeah, maybe best feature nomination. But yeah, it's great that we got the best animated film because it means that people are seeing it as an animated film. But yeah.
So if there are no more questions from the audience, all of my questions have been answered for the moment. Do either of you have anything that you would like to say that we didn't ask you yet?
I had a couple things of advice if you wanted. I don't know.
I want them.
Okay. So the first one is like stay in touch with your peers and teachers and like help them out because you know your peers are your best cheerleaders, I guess, you know, and like you help each other out. It's definitely you're gonna grow a lot together, which is always really lovely. And then I think after having worked in the industry for a long time, I found that it's very important to like help your friends with their art, but also make your own art. Because like it can get a little tedious, like always helping other people with their projects. And we're creative people, you know, and so you kind of really need to scratch that itch for yourself. Like don't, it goes back to just self-care in general. Like you need to take care of your artistic needs as well. What else? And be kind to people around you, you know, like that's again like not just because it'll keep you working. People like to work with nice people, you know, like so it's just important to take care of each other and don't stop learning. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of that is amazing advice, and I think the another key thing is like the struggle is real. Sometimes it's hard. This again is a really niche kind of little section in entertainment, and it's really it's not cheap to make to make these projects, and it takes a small army. You know, you need a lot of people in every department and real live action stages and live action cameras and things like that. And not a lot of studios want to, you know, shell that out. So I think there's definitely been times when I'm out of work. I've gone to work on 2D projects when there haven't been stop motion projects and stuff like that, all of which have been very great and rewarding. But just remember that like there are lulls and there are times when there isn't a lot going on. Like we luckily got Netflix interested in stop motion like 3 or 4 years ago, and now we have amazing films coming out like Wendell and Wild and Pinocchio. But those are the first, you know, huge films in quite some time that didn't come from Leica. So I think just waiting for your chance is really important and not giving up. And if it's something you want to do, like Becky said, just make your own films. There are free apps on you know, the phone that will animate. You know, you can set something up with like a little $15 tripod. That's what I tell my students. You can just make a wire armature and throw some clay on it and have you know, your own art and animation. So I think there's always ways to just be creating on your own if you don't have a way to get a job. But just don't be let down by those lulls, and they happen to everybody. Even right now, they're, you know, what is everyone going to do now that these movies are wrapped? It's what we're constantly talking about. So I think just keep going. And yeah, I love Marcel, the best movie ever.
It's true.
That's great. So before we let you go, there was one more question from Li Ping Wong,
Oh yeah.
who would like to know what your puppet show is about.
Oh, Becky.
Questions from earlier when you were describing your own dreams. Yes.
Right. And for the TV show it's kind of like, it's like Beetlejuice the animated series meets Bob's Burgers. So it's like all of these like Halloween monsters and they work in a diner together. Should be pretty creepy and fun. I think I like it. Maria?
I love it. Mine is still in this like book full of these loose ideas that I don't really know how they're going to connect yet, but it's essentially about a place you can go when you're feeling uninspired as an artist or just as a person. And yeah, it's sort of about, it's this not imaginary land, but this sort of like limbo that you can sort of get transported to and talk out your feelings and realize what you want to do, basically. So it's mostly it's kind of, yeah, it's happening. It's gonna be big. It's my big Sesame Street, but I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited to have a lot of artists and musicians input, like I said, and see what happens when uninspired people get inspired. So
Great. It's beautiful. So you've given us so much inspiration. And I just wanted to add that, of course, Marcel the Shell started as one of those small personal projects on YouTube with a very limited budget and production values. And look where it is now.
definitely. Yeah.
That's an inspiration for all of us. Thank you so much. This has
Thank
been
you.
a really fascinating
having us.
conversation. And I hope to encounter you all again somewhere in the puppet world.
Sure you will. Thank
Lovely.
you so much. This was
Thank
lovely.
you for having us. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you again to Dr. Paulette Richards, Becky, and Maria. I can't wait to hear about your projects, and when they come back or come out, hopefully we can welcome you back to the Ballard Institute to discuss them. You were very inspiring and insightful. So thank you very much for sharing your work with us. As we wrap up, just a quick reminder that we are very happy to make these forums free and available to the public, and a lot of our other programming continues to be free. So if you're able to make a contribution, I just dropped a link in the chat where you can help support this ongoing free programming. You can also again sign up to join our email list to learn about our upcoming forums. Again, next week we'll talk about our Maurice Sendak exhibition. So we hope to see you all back there. So again, thank you to Paulette, Becky, and Maria. And we will hopefully see you online for our next forum. Thank you.
Thank you.